Hello and welcome back to the News from the Real World podcast. This is the third part. The second part was the one that I ended talking about how awesome Bono is, and I just wanted to sort of start this one off with a little plug for Bono.
Should we just end it now?
Andrew was so moved by what you said that he ran off to find him, actually.
On his way.
Last thing he said was,
Look,
I'm coming!
All I can say about Bono is
he
he's an incredible philanthropist, and he gives a lot of money to really great things, and
Still
anyway.
talking about Bono. Fine.
All right, we can move on.
All right.
Let's talk about this article posted on HowlRound in the Essays, Practice, and Opinion section about Ferguson moments. So artists respond to the incredible, protests and everything that's happened in Ferguson since the death of Mike Brown on August 9th. I'm not sure we need to recap all of that, but in Ferguson, the artists from around the United States have traveled to Ferguson to, sort of work with that community there, and for the purposes of, I think, healing and just kind of, figuring out what happened there, how they can move forward, etc. And so this post is personal accounts of what it was like to go there and to work with the folks in that community, and it's really intriguing the way that it's written. It's the first one I found really powerful, talking about it's really important to remember that we went here because we were drawn there, but at the same time they already have artists there who are thinking about these ideas and have been there the whole time, and really are working hard towards this goal. And it was really interesting reading the diversity of experiences in this, and how some people immediately went there like, I'm going to make a change, and then really found that, well, that was a bad idea.
Right.
So what did everyone think about this?
It's kind of like a bull in a china shop sort of thing. People just like, I'm here. I don't know. I think this was a national story, so I don't think it's inappropriate to want to respond and to respond through art if you're an artist. And
it's clearly not a localized problem.
Right,
Police brutality or
so saying
use of force.
It's us and them doesn't make sense, so wanting to be involved makes sense. I think where I sort of struggled, and one of them kind of talks about this, is that idea. I had this image of a bunch of people feeling like Ferguson needed to be saved, where I would say that many people in Ferguson, and I've heard them say as much, we don't need that. Like, we've got a sense of community here, and we would rather face this problem from here. So we don't need this person from Oregon and this person from New York and this person from Texas to come in and save us, especially when, I know that at least a couple of them were white, maybe not all of them, hopefully not all of them. So I found that a little bit odd, although I don't want to be so cynical as to say, your sense of wanting to help is not valuable. You know what I mean? But that was definitely where I struggled, was sort of that, like, maybe they don't want this, It's kind of that, like, Western Central, I need to go out and help you without knowing what you need.
That's what I was thinking about, too. That's what this reminds me of.
Yeah.
Well, a little bit in a different way is, like, the missions trip work.
Right.
Yeah,
like
service
things like
tourism.
that, being like,
Yeah.
I'm here to help,
Exactly.
everything's okay now. It's like, that's not really how that goes. This is already a community. This is already a place that has people here to deal with this, to love each other, to be here for each other. And maybe you coming in, maybe you have a different view of how that's supposed to go, and it's not necessarily going to add to the situation in a positive way.
Right.
And maybe there's something to be said about getting there and realizing it was the wrong choice and humbly leaving, and that's okay. And that's not to be taken as like, oh, I did a bad thing. That's to be taken as, okay, you're good. I'm here. I tried. But that's not what's important. The important part is that you're doing all right.
I think that everyone can provide some, viewpoints on something. So just going there and listening is probably the best thing you can do.
And I think a lot of times people go there trying to do something, not realizing that it's not about you showing that you can do something. It's about you showing that you're there as another person, to be with another person.
Right.
That listening is doing something.
It's slightly different than service going to another country, because sometimes there are no resources there.
Of course.
And so bringing resources, that's valuable. But in a case where they have all the same resources that these people could potentially bring, it is about just going there and learning. And I'm sure that it is helpful in some way for people to tell their story to an outsider. So if you're going to shoot a documentary or something like that, I find that incredibly valuable, because it is a way of crystallizing a moment, and also spreading information about it.
Sure, and showing this to a wider audience. I think that's very valuable, and I'm not sure that's what this was, what they
It reminds
set
me
out
of
to do.
like thinking about the Laramie Project. Are you familiar
Yeah.
with like the Tectonic
Sure.
Theater Project? Went to Laramie, Wyoming, just a month after Matthew Shepard was killed in the 90s, and created an amazing theater piece that has been one of the most popularly produced shows in American theater in the last 15 years.
Sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, and something really valuable. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I find that these artists are certainly brave, and I think that
Sure.
they seem to have learned a lot from their experience.
Yeah,
I think that concept of listening is really
Yeah.
where it's at.
I would agree.
I think the thing I appreciated the most out of that is the people who were making the I Love Ferguson signs. Like, that to me was the one where I was like, if I was from Ferguson and this was happening to my community of people that I loved, that's what I would appreciate the most.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
that would be something that's like, thanks, me too. You know?
Right, and the sense of solidarity is not
Right.
unimportant.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's just sort of tough how that comes across in
Yeah.
your actions. But, I don't want to say that this was for naught. I think it was an interesting project, and maybe it'll do some good.
Let's hope.
Speaking
So,
of non-humans.
speaking of non-humans, were we? We weren't. So our next article is about robo-readers and how students, especially this article focused on younger students, how they respond to automated means of learning as opposed to a human, and how it's sort of counterintuitive that they actually tend to respond better. In other words, if they are doing a test or writing an essay or something like that, and they get automated feedback from, say, a robot, they're more likely to say, oh, okay, like if they get negative feedback and revise, whereas with somebody who's real, a physical teacher, they're more likely to shut down or to not want to revise. So I thought this was pretty interesting, and thinking about it, I can't say I wouldn't be the same way. What did you guys think?
My first thought when I read this was, I totally want a person to grade. You
Yeah.
know, like I totally
Yeah.
want a person there to be like, no, this is what you did wrong, this is why, and then if I had any questions, they could elaborate. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that a computer can't be disappointed in you.
Right.
Which really, to me, was the selling point, you know? There's
Totally.
been times where somebody has really worked to teach me a thing, and it just did not click in my head. And no matter how many times they sat with me and took their own personal time to explain 2 + 2 = 4, and I was like, it's 5! And
Wow.
It was
you
that.
know, it was
She's never gotten that
ever.
even today.
It's hard. But, things like that. But a computer is just, it's 4, it's 4, it's 4, you know?
Right.
And that to me is, I can ask people for help, I can ask, you can still involve people in this conversation.
Sure. It's not an either or.
But not having a
Necessarily.
computer be like, what is wrong with you?
Right.
You are failing.
Right, and they're not talking about robotic teachers per se. It's more, yeah. So, and they were
Toads
talking.
in my brain.
Right. You don't want that. But they were also talking about how kids tended to then view a lot of these assignments more like games, which I thought was really interesting too. Like, oh, I'm gonna, right, yeah, but like, oh, I'm gonna get this right.
It's a puzzle.
Right? But I think like that idea of, oh, answering a question, okay, well, 7 out of these 9 were right, keep going and try again, it's like, okay, I'm gonna make this happen. Whereas with maybe a professor giving it back to you, like, you might be more likely to shut down. I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I agree with it. I love the idea of that kind of game.
It sounds fun.
Yeah, it's great.
I want to learn.
And also, they're not talking about it in the case of like actually robo-grading. They think that humans should still do the grading. It's like an assessment
Right.
for revision, basically.
I think of it as
Which I think
things
is
like
great.
when you take like online quizzes and stuff like that, though.
Mhm.
You know?
Give you some feedback and then
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah.
Go forth.
So our final article to discuss today is the fact that Carnegie Mellon University has been rated as one of the ugliest schools in our nation. It is.
They're talking about the buildings, folks.
Obviously.
Not
Yeah,
us.
clearly.
Because look at this.
I mean,
And this is just the tech department.
I don't know. Andrew, who is here, is practically Beyonce. So.
even look
But
at
it
Why
is
you had to leave.
the 13th ugliest building by the Daily Caller and the 5th ugliest campus based on Campus Squeeze and Bro Bible.
Bro Bible
Bro
is pretty
Bible.
much, both of those places are, very well received journalistic
accredited
Right.
institutions.
Bro Bible. I mean, that's where I get everything.
.com.
Bros.
I got all
No,
this.
but
at
really,
Bro Bible.
so this article is basically just saying that the aesthetic is not very welcoming. It's not very. And we had a couple discussions about this in the office before we started this podcast that I thought were interesting. In that Andrew pointed out that he didn't actually come to CMU to see it, and he didn't physically walk on campus to decide that it was awful.
Right.
He just took what he had heard about it and looked at pictures on Google, which I think is fine. I think that there's some value to what he's saying, and I think that it's probably not a campus for everybody, but I think it absolutely matches Pittsburgh in a nice way. And I personally don't think that Pittsburgh is an ugly city,
No.
which I have heard from a lot of other people
Yeah.
outside of Pittsburgh. But once you come to Pittsburgh, it kind of grows on you. It's kind of one of those places.
It's like a hodgepodge. It represents
It
a
is.
lot of different parts of life.
And I think that's
people.
Industry.
okay.
An industry, which is I think is cool.
Mhm.
It's not beautiful per se.
Yeah. But it is very it is very much so a hodgepodge of buildings as well. You
Yeah,
pointed out that none
for
of the
sure.
buildings match.
Right. I
lot
think
of
that that's.
disparate
I think
parts.
that is the main thing that causes us to get a low score in aesthetics is that we don't have a common aesthetic throughout the whole
Sure.
place.
Right. Like
it's
the-
not like University of Virginia where everything is designed with this
I
like
was gonna bring up.
Jeffersonian ideal. So it's. I think that there are incredibly beautiful buildings here, buildings that I
Absolutely.
love. But there is a thing. What did they say about everything looking like a train station? That was kind of
Oh,
brilliant.
that was
Which is
stunning.
true.
Kind of true.
I'm not, it's real. That's
Grinnell
pretty
kind of
real.
looks like a train station.
It does. The train
Yeah.
could totally just go right through those columns,
The
and
column,
I wouldn't
yeah.
at all be surprised.
A lot of students would be injured, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Baker over there is pretty
Yeah.
tough over there.
It's things are
Yeah.
things are rough.
I was
they have
very
like a-
surprised that they
a
did not
steel
mention
mill.
our walking to the sky.
They did.
They did.
Well, he mentioned it. Well,
He
okay, sorry.
slammed it.
He
said
hated
that
it.
the other articles didn't mention it.
Right.
The article
Oh,
originally
oh,
claimed
oh.
CMU was
Yes.
us.
See now,
yes.
I love that sculpture or that statue.
there
I don't know
you
what you call it.
It's over.
You don't like it?
First Bono and now this. I hate
Bono
it.
is-
I feel
Walking
like
to the
those
sky
kids.
inspires me.
They are gonna walk off, and there should be a pile of bodies on the ground next to them.
I
When
can't agree with that.
I will
Great.
admit, when I first came to this campus, I did call it the lemming pole.
It's the worst thing.
First observation of
I hate
Carnegie
it
Mellon
so
University. My husband was like, it's pretty cool.
No.
You loved it. And I was like, they're lemmings. This is
The worst.
I was not
I love
impressed.
these alternative viewpoints of it because like
Furious.
typically read into art pretty strongly. That thing I'm just like it's attractive. I get what's going on. There's a woman at the front. There's a little girl on it. It's great.
It's
They're
not,
walking
it's
to
not
the
very
sky.
challenging.
No.
Thumbs down.
To
I'm
me.
walking to the sky.
Yeah.
I also like it because it actually is reminiscent of some artwork that I've seen in Boston. I think it may be the same artist who's done it. Like at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston.
In air quotes, Museum of Fine Arts. Is that what it is?
Harsh.
What I would.
Harsh.
Maybe it's great. Maybe it's great. I haven't seen it. This
I
person
think
does
we
that
also
work.
have an unfortunate situation here at CMU where we have to compare our building to the Cathedral of Learning.
Yes, true.
Which is a huge, beautiful building that looks like Hogwarts on the inside. So
It's pretty wild looking.
we're definitely not the Cathedral of Learning, but I do
No, we
think
don't have
that
one of those.
we have some.
We have
value
walking to
there.
the sky.
Beautiful.
We have the lemming pole.
We have some actual things that I like.
We do have
Gates is a really cool building.
The CFA
is pretty.
is beautiful. It's beautiful. That's like Grecian
planned
statue.
It's pretty
We-
beautiful.
We've been practicing.
the
for
inside
years.
is also equally as lovely.
It's gorgeous.
which I find
There's some strange stuff in there.
It's true,
Just, you know.
but I think it's lovely. I really like it.
Me too. So there. Take that.
And that's all the time we have for today. Not that we were timing ourselves.
Right.
Well,
But we just
We
started.
probably
can't
were.
we
do
just
anymore.
decided this is enough. We all just.
Thank you for watching. If you would like to check out where we got these articles from, go to cmuptm.blogspot.com. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Is it recording right now?
It's already recorded.
Is it recognized?
It's recording.
Look at it.
It's like
there's a little
little
square that
recording.
follows my head.
I know.
That's kind of frightening. That's
Do I have a square? Do I have a face?
Yes, you do. You do have a square.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, try to find me on Facebook. You go ahead.
Maybe
Not
that's
sure it's quite that advanced, but.